Okay, now we're going to cover some of the basics of Adobe Premiere. This is what I use for most of my video editing nowadays. It's pretty easy to use and you can do a lot with it. This is what the screen looks like when you first start it. It first lists your most recent projects, and as you can see, here are the names of some of the different sections I've been working on for this tutorial. This is the same software I've been using to edit it. Now let's just hope the universe doesn't implode later when I use Adobe Premiere to edit a video on Adobe Premiere. Anyway, the first thing we're going to want to do is click on New Project. And there will be several presets here, but we're going to want to click on Custom Settings. Now we'll just go down the list one item at a time. For editing mode, we're going to want to select Desktop. A lot of the settings here are for actual camera or TV footage, but we're using a computer recording, so we're going to want our own settings. Next, for time base, select whatever frame rate you've been recording your footage at. I've been using 30 frames per second, so I'm going to select that. You can skip playback settings for now. I'll talk about that later. Now for frame size, go and enter in the resolution your recordings are at. In my case, it's 800 by 600. Now for pixel aspect ratio, you want square pixels. Then for field, select no fields because our footage isn't interlaced. Display format, 30 frames per second timecode is fine. Now for safe areas, these are percentages of power to appease your computer so it doesn't kill you. Nah, just kidding. These are margins they suggest to make sure your footage can be seen on any TV. So if you have an older television with a very round tube that might cut off some of the picture, this is meant to counteract that. I don't worry about that too much, so I usually just set everything to 0%. You can leave them the way they are if you want to, but as long as you keep your margins in mind, it's not really necessary. Next, for our audio rate, I'm setting this to 44.1 kilohertz, as that's CD quality, and it's also what the source engine outputs the audio at, so it should be fine. For display format, you can leave that alone. Okay, capture you can ignore. Video rendering, this has to do with how it will export your footage. I'll talk about that more later. For now, leave it alone. Now, default sequence, this refers to how many audio and video tracks you'll have in your timeline. The default values will probably be fine here. This will give us 3 video tracks, which will give us some room to stack things on top of each other. And 3 stereo sound tracks, which should also be fine. You can always add or delete the number of tracks later if you'd like. So with all that set up, let's give this a name. I'll call this Premiere Tutorial. Now press OK.